The envelope arrived at midnight, containing a single photograph that would destroy everything Janelle thought she knew about the man in the white suit. But 12 hours earlier, she'd been a waitress making minimum wage, desperately trying to keep her lights on until she helped a young woman find her grandfather and found herself standing face to face with the most powerful man in Chicago. What Janelle couldn't have known was that the blind girl wasn't lost by accident. Someone had been watching them both. And the billionaire CEO she was about to meet? He'd been searching for her for 23 years. Want to know what happens when a single act of kindness reveals a conspiracy that spans decades? Keep watching to uncover the truth about Big Boss Darius and the woman who unknowingly held the key to his empire's survival. The morning sun cut through the windows of Rosalie's Diner on Michigan Avenue, painting everything in shades of honey and gold. Janelle Hartwell wiped down table 7 for the third time. Her movements automatic after 6 years of slinging coffee and pancakes to Chicago's downtown crowd. At 39, she'd perfected the art of invisible survival smile, bright enough to earn tips, walls high enough to keep questions out. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. Another text from the landlord, 3 days until eviction if she couldn't come up with $1,200. Janelle deleted it without reading the whole message. Some problems were better faced one breakfast shift at a time. Order up, Nella. She grabbed the plates of scrambled eggs and bacon, delivered them to the businessman in the corner booth who never looked up from his laptop, and returned to the counter where her manager, Rita, was eyeing her with that particular combination of sympathy and concern that made Janelle's teeth ache. "You doing okay, hun?" "Always am." Janelle's smile was practiced perfection. "Tips are good today." Rita didn't buy it, she never did, but she had the grace to let it slide. They'd been through this dance before. Single mother, 2 jobs, 1 teenager who deserved better than studio apartments, and powdered mac and cheese. The American dream. Served with a side of exhaustion. The lunch rush hit at 11:30 like it always did. Janelle moved through the controlled chaos with efficient grace, refilling coffee, taking orders, pretending her feet didn't feel like they were walking on broken glass. She'd just delivered a turkey club to table 12 when she noticed the young woman standing near the entrance. Mid-20s, maybe, with smooth brown skin and an elegant burgundy dress that spoke of money, real money, not the knockoff kind. But what caught Janelle's attention was the white cane in her hand and the look of pure, crystalline panic on her face. The young woman's hand trembled as she gripped the cane, her head turning slightly, as if trying to orient herself to sounds Janelle couldn't distinguish from the normal diner chaos. Someone bumped past her, muttering an apology that probably didn't register. The woman's breath came faster. Janelle was moving before she'd made the conscious decision to intervene. "Hey there," she said softly, approaching from the front so her voice would announce her presence. "You look a little lost. I'm Janelle. Can I help you with something?" The young woman's shoulders dropped half an inch. "Oh, thank God. Yes, please. I'm Simone Monroe. I was supposed to meet my grandfather here, but I think I got turned around when I came in, and," her voice cracked slightly, "I can't find him. He said he'd be at a window table, but I don't know where that is, and my phone died, and—" Hey, it's okay." Janelle gently touched Simone's arm. "Let's figure this out together. What's your grandfather's name?" "Darius Monroe." Simone's grip on her cane loosened fractionally. "He's probably wearing white. He always wears white." Janelle scanned the diner. No one in white. "Is he usually on time?" "Always." "That's what's weird." Simone bit her lip. "He's never late. Never." A small thread of unease worked its way down Janelle's spine. "Okay, how about this? Let me get you seated somewhere comfortable, get you some water, and we'll call him together. I've got a charger behind the counter. Sound good?" The relief on Simone's face was so profound it made Janelle's chest tight. "That would be amazing. Thank you so much." Janelle guided Simone to the quietest booth, the one near the back that the staff usually reserved for breaks. She brought water, plugged in Simone's phone, and was about to ask for Darius Monroe's number when Rita appeared at her elbow. "Nell, you can't just— 5 minutes, Rita, please." Something in Janelle's tone must have convinced her, because Rita sighed and nodded. 5 minutes. Then you're back on the floor. Simone's phone powered on slowly. She navigated it with practiced ease, her fingers flying across the screen with the confidence of someone who'd long ago memorized every function. She put the phone to her ear, waited. Her expression shifted from hopeful to confused to worried in the span of 30 seconds. "Straight to voicemail," she said. "That's not like him at all. Does he have an office nearby? Maybe he got held up in a meeting." "His office is downtown, yeah. Monroe Capital Group. But," Simone shook her head, "he doesn't miss meetings with me. Especially not after—" She stopped abruptly. "After what?" Simone's jaw tightened. "It's complicated. Family stuff." Janelle understood complicated family stuff better than most. "Do you have another number you can try? Someone from his office, maybe?" "His assistant, Veronica." Simone was already dialing. This time, someone answered. Janelle could hear the faint murmur of a woman's voice on the other end. "Veronica, it's Simone. Is my grandfather there? We were supposed to meet at—" Simone went very still. "What do you mean he left an hour ago? He should be." Another pause. "No, I'm at Rosalie's diner on Michigan. He's not here. His phone's going to voicemail." Janelle watched Simone's face cycle through confusion, frustration, and something that looked uncomfortably close to fear. "Okay, yeah. If you hear from him, tell him to call me immediately." Simone ended the call and set the phone down with careful precision. "This doesn't make sense. Veronica said he left for our lunch meeting over an hour ago. It's a 10-minute drive from his office." "Traffic?" Janelle offered, though her own instincts were starting to hum with wrongness. "Maybe." Simone didn't sound convinced. Janelle glanced at the clock. Her break was over 3 minutes ago, and Rita was giving her the look. But something about this situation felt off in a way she couldn't quite name. A grandfather who was never late, now unaccountably missing, a young woman alone in a city that didn't slow down for anyone. "Listen," Janelle said, making a decision she'd probably regret. "Give me your number. I'm off shift in 3 hours. If he hasn't shown up by then, I'll help you track him down, okay?" Simone's smile was radiant with gratitude. "You don't have to do that. I know. But I'm going to anyway." They exchanged numbers. Janelle got Simone an order of fries and a Coke on the house, she told Rita, who muttered something about soft hearts and hard rent but didn't argue, and returned to her tables, where the lunch rush was reaching its fever pitch. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just stepped into something much bigger than a missed lunch date. Stick around. What Janelle doesn't know yet is that helping Simone just put her directly in the crosshairs of a decades-old secret. And the man in the white suit? He's already watching. 3 hours and 47 minutes later, Janelle stood outside Rosalie's diner with her purse slung over her shoulder and her phone pressed to her ear. Simone answered on the first ring. "Did he call?" Janelle asked, though she already knew the answer from the tension in Simone's breathing. "No, nothing. I've tried his phone 15 times. I called his driver. He said he dropped grandfather off at Monroe Capital this morning and hasn't heard from him since. I called his house in Lincoln Park, his assistant again, even his lawyer. Nobody's seen him since he left the office." Janelle's stomach knotted. "Have you called the police? And tell them what? That my grandfather missed lunch? They'll say to wait 24 hours. He's an adult. He has a right to go where he wants." Simone's voice cracked. "But you don't understand. He doesn't do this. Ever." "Where are you now?" "Still at the diner. I didn't know where else to go." "Stay there. I'm coming back." Janelle found Simone in the same booth, her barely touched fries long gone cold. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, painting her in amber light that made her look younger and more vulnerable than she probably was. "Okay," Janelle said, sliding into the booth across from her. "Let's think about this logically. You said he left his office an hour before your lunch meeting. Where was he going in between?" "I don't know." Veronica said he had the morning blocked off for administrative work, whatever that means. She said he seemed normal when he left, good mood, actually. He told her he was looking forward to lunch with me. Any enemies? Business rivals? Someone who might want to. Janelle couldn't quite finish the sentence. Simone's laugh was bitter. My grandfather is Darius Kincaid Monroe. He's the founder and CEO of Monroe Capital Group, one of the largest private equity firms in the Midwest. He's worth somewhere north of $3 billion. He has more enemies than I have, fingers to count them on. The number hit Janelle like a physical thing. $3 billion. The kind of money that existed in movies and Forbes articles, not in her world of overdue rent and broken refrigerators. But, Simone continued, he's also respected, fair. He doesn't make enemies lightly, and when he does, he handles them with lawyers and leverage. Not whatever this is. What about family? You mentioned it was complicated earlier. Simone's jaw tightened again. That same tell from before. My family is... There's a lot of money involved. A lot of opinions about who deserves what and who should be in charge when grandfather steps down. He's 62, still sharp as a knife, but people are already circling. People like who? My uncle, Raymond. Grandfather's younger brother. He's always thought he should have more control over the company. Then there's my cousin, Trevor Raymond's son. He's been pushing to modernize things, take the company in a different direction. Grandfather thinks it's too risky. Simone rubbed her temples. There's been tension lately. Arguments at family dinners? Trevor walked out of the last board meeting. Janelle's journalist instincts, dormant since she'd dropped out of Columbia 20 years ago, to have her daughter stirred to life. Tension enough to do something drastic? I don't, Simone stopped. I don't want to think that. But I also don't know what else to think. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, Chicago moved at its relentless pace, oblivious to the quiet panic unfolding in a back booth. His office, Janelle said suddenly. Can we get in there? Look at his calendar. See if there's something Veronica missed? We'd need clearance. Security is tight. But your family, his granddaughter, they'd let you in, wouldn't they? Simone considered this. Maybe, if Veronica backs us up. She was already reaching for her phone. 10 minutes later, they were in an Uber heading downtown, weaving through traffic that seemed designed to test Janelle's already frayed nerves. She texted her daughter Keisha. Working late. Probably won't be home till after 9. Pizza money on the counter. Love you. The response came immediately. Always working late. Whatever. Janelle closed her eyes briefly. 17 years old, and every bit as angry as Janelle had been at that age. The difference was, Janelle's anger had been directed at a mother who'd had too many boyfriends and too little time. Keisha's anger was directed at a mother who worked herself to exhaustion and still couldn't afford the college applications her teachers said she was smart enough to submit. You okay? Simone asked softly. Yeah. Just daughter stuff. How old? 17. Senior year. She's brilliant and furious, and I don't blame her for either. Simone's smile was understanding. My mom was a single mother, too, for a while. Before she met my stepdad. It was hard doesn't even begin to cover it. No, Janelle agreed. It really doesn't. The Monroe Capital Group offices occupied floors 30 through 45 of a gleaming glass tower that made Janelle feel immediately underdressed in her diner uniform and worn sneakers. The lobby was all marble and modern art, the kind of space that whispered old money and new power in equal measure. Veronica met them in the lobby, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every crisis the business world could throw at her and had handled them all before breakfast. Simone, she said, pulling the younger woman into a brief, fierce hug. Still nothing from him? Nothing. We need to look at his calendar, Veronica. See if there's anything that might explain where he went. Veronica's gaze shifted to Janelle, assessing and sharp. And you are? Janelle Hartwell. I'm helping Simone. She's the one who helped me at the diner when I couldn't find grandfather, Simone added. I trust her. Something in Veronica's expression softened fractionally. All right, come on. But we need to be discreet. The last thing we need is the board-catching wind that Darius is MIA. Raymond's already been sniffing around, asking questions. They took a private elevator to the 42nd floor, where Darius Monroe's executive suite occupied a corner with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The office was elegant, but not ostentatious. Leather chairs, dark wood, photographs of family and philanthropic events on the walls. One photo caught Janelle's eye. A much younger Darius, maybe 40, his arm around a woman with Simone's same bone structure and warm smile. "My mother," Simone said quietly, noticing Janelle's gaze. "She died when I was 12. Car accident. I'm so sorry. Grandfather raised me after that. Just him and me and Veronica running interference." Simone's voice was thick with emotion. "He's not just my grandfather. He's everything." Veronica was already at Darius's desk, pulling up his calendar on the computer. "Okay, let's see. This morning, he had administrative time from 8 to 11, then lunch with you at noon, Simone. After that, he was supposed to have a 2 o'clock with the acquisitions team and a 4 o'clock with legal." "What kind of administrative time?" Janelle asked. "Usually means personal business, phone calls, paperwork, things that don't require the full team." Veronica scrolled through the previous weeks. "He's had a lot of administrative blocks lately, actually. More than usual. Since when?" "Since—" Veronica paused, her finger hovering over the screen. "Since about 6 weeks ago." Right after, she stopped abruptly. "After what?" Simone pressed. Veronica looked uncomfortable. "After he hired that private investigator." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What private investigator?" Simone's voice was carefully controlled. "I don't know all the details. He was secretive about it, but I saw the invoices. Montgomery and Associates. They're a boutique firm. Very discreet. They specialize in background checks, asset searches, missing persons." "Missing persons?" Janelle's heart rate kicked up. "Was someone missing?" "I don't know. He never said. But he's been taking calls from them, meeting with someone named Bethany Montgomery." Veronica's expression was troubled. "I got the impression it was personal. Old business, maybe." "He seemed different after those conversations. Distracted. Sometimes happy, sometimes worried." Simone had gone very pale. "Do you have contact information for this Montgomery and Associates?" Veronica was already writing it down. "Here. But Simone, if your grandfather was investigating something sensitive, tracking it down might be dangerous. More dangerous than him disappearing." Simone's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Veronica didn't have an answer for that. They were preparing to leave when Janelle noticed something on Darius's desk, a leather notebook, the expensive kind with gilt-edged pages. It was open to a page filled with neat handwriting. Most of it was business notes, meeting reminders, phone numbers. But at the bottom, underlined twice, was a name. Janelle H. Janelle's blood went cold. "Simone. What?" "This." She pointed to the name. Simone came closer, Veronica guiding her hand to the notebook. Her fingers traced the embossed letters. "Janelle H. That's your name. How would your grandfather know my name?" Janelle heard the shake in her own voice. "I've never met him. I don't move in those circles. I'm a waitress. There's no reason he should even know I exist." The three women stood in silence, staring at the notebook as if it might offer answers through sheer force of will. "Unless," Veronica said slowly, "you're what he was investigating." Montgomery and Associates operated out of a surprisingly modest office in Wicker Park. Above, a vintage record store, and below a yoga studio that promised transcendence for only $35 a session. Janelle and Simone stood outside the entrance, both of them hesitant, in a way that spoke to the magnitude of what they might be about to discover. "We don't have to do this," Janelle said. "We could still call the police, let them handle it, and tell them my billionaire grandfather was investigating the waitress who helped me. That'll go over great." Simone's tone was dry, but her hand trembled slightly on her cane. "Besides, if grandfather wanted something investigated quietly, he had a reason. I need to know what it was. They climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor, where a frosted glass door announced Montgomery and Associates in understated gold lettering. Inside, the office was clean and professional filing cabinets, a reception desk manned by a young man with excellent posture and a suspicious expression, and a closed door that presumably led to the investigator herself. "Can I help you?" The receptionist's tone suggested he very much hoped he couldn't. "We need to speak with Bethany Montgomery," Simone said. "It's about Darius Monroe." The receptionist's expression flickered recognition, concern, something else Janelle couldn't quite read. "Miss Montgomery is with a client. If you'd like to make an appointment—" "It's urgent," Janelle interrupted. "Darius Monroe is missing. We know he hired your firm 6 weeks ago. We need to know what he was investigating." The door to the inner office opened. A woman stepped out, early 40s, athletic build, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and eyes that assessed Janelle and Simone with the precision of someone trained to notice everything. "You're Simone Monroe," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. And you're Bethany Montgomery. You've been investigating something for my grandfather." Bethany glanced at her receptionist. "Hold my calls, Marcus." Then to Simone and Janelle, "Come in." The inner office was even more sparse than the reception area. A desk, 2 client chairs, a wall of filing cabinets, and a whiteboard covered in notes and photographs that Bethany quickly turned around before they could get a good look. "Sit," she said, and they did. "Now tell me why you think Darius Monroe is missing, and why that would be my concern." Simone explained about the missed lunch, the unreturned calls, the hours that had stretched with no word. Bethany listened without interrupting, her expression revealing nothing. When Simone finished, Bethany was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked directly at Janelle. "And who are you?" "Janelle Hartwell. I helped Simone today when she couldn't find her grandfather. I'm just trying to help." "Janelle Hartwell," Bethany repeated slowly. She opened a desk drawer and pulled out a file folder, set it on the desk between them. Born the 14th of January, 1986, in Detroit, Michigan. Moved to Chicago when you were 19. Attended Columbia University's journalism program for 2 years before dropping out when you got pregnant. Daughter's name is Keisha, born June 2008. Father's name is not listed on the birth certificate. You've worked at Rosalie's Diner for 6 years, previously at a dozen other service jobs. You live in a studio apartment in Rogers Park. You're 3 months behind on rent. Janelle felt like she'd been punched. Why would you? "Because," Bethany said gently, "you're what Darius Monroe hired me to find." The world tilted sideways. Simone was gripping Janelle's arm, either for support or to keep Janelle from bolting. Janelle couldn't tell which. "That doesn't make any sense," Janelle managed. "I don't know Darius Monroe. I've never had anything to do with him or his company, or—" "Not directly," Bethany agreed. "But 6 weeks ago, he came to me with a name and a date. Elena Hartwell, December 1985. Elena, Janelle's mother's name. A woman who died of an overdose when Janelle was 14, leaving her to navigate foster care and survival on her own." "My mother," Janelle whispered. "Yes." Darius wanted to know if Elena Hartwell had any living relatives. He had reason to believe she might have had a daughter who would be around your age. "It took me 3 weeks to track you down. You've moved around a lot. Changed your last name once. Kept a pretty low profile. But I found you. I gave Darius my report 2 weeks ago." "Why?" Simone demanded. "Why was my grandfather looking for Janelle's mother?" Bethany's expression was complicated sympathy mixed with something that looked like pity. "Because 24 years ago, Elena Hartwell worked for Monroe Capital Group as an administrative assistant, and according to several sources I interviewed, she and Darius Monroe were involved in a relationship that lasted approximately 9 months. It ended when she disappeared without notice in February 1986. The room spun. Janelle gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. "You're saying—" She couldn't finish the sentence. I'm saying, Bethany said carefully, that Darius Monroe believes he might be your father. The truth is finally coming into focus, but what Janelle's about to discover next will shatter everything she thought she knew about her mother, her past, and why someone would want to keep these secrets buried. Don't go anywhere. Janelle heard the words, understood them on an intellectual level, but couldn't quite make them connect to anything resembling reality. Her mother, brittle, angry Elena, who'd cycled through boyfriends like seasons and jobs like weather had been involved with a billionaire, had worked in a glass tower, worn business clothes, been the kind of woman who could catch the eye of a man like Darius Monroe. That's impossible, she said. My mother was, she wasn't. She was young, Bethany said quietly. 22 when she started at Monroe Capital. Smart, by all accounts. Ambitious and beautiful. She was a drug addict. The words came out harsh, defensive. She died of an overdose in a motel room in Detroit. She was 39 years old and she had nothing. No money, no home, no family except me, and I was in foster care by then because she couldn't. Janelle stopped, her throat closing. Simone's hand found hers and squeezed. People change, Bethany said. Circumstances change them. I don't know what happened to your mother after she left Chicago, but I know what happened before. She was good at her job, well-liked. She and Darius were discreet, but several people noticed. It seemed serious. Then why did she disappear? That, Bethany said, is what Darius was trying to figure out. He came to me 6 weeks ago with a theory. He said he'd recently received an anonymous letter containing information that made him reconsider events from 24 years ago. The letter suggested that Elena didn't leave voluntarily, that someone might have encouraged her departure. Someone like who? Simone's voice was sharp. He didn't tell me. He said he needed proof before he could make accusations. He wanted me to find Elena, or if she was deceased, find any children she might have had. He wanted answers, and now he's missing. Janelle's voice was flat. Right after he found out I exist. The implications hung in the air, thick and ominous. I need to see that file, Simone said. Everything you found about Janelle and her mother. Bethany hesitated. That's confidential client information. My grandfather is missing. Possibly because of whatever's in that file. You want to help him? Let us see it. After a moment, Bethany slid the folder across the desk. I shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, well, Simone's smile was grim. We're all doing things we shouldn't today. The file was thicker than Janelle expected. Birth certificates, employment records, photographs she'd never seen before her mother at 22, smiling at a company picnic, looking impossibly young and hopeful, pay stubs, apartment lease agreements. And then, February 1986, everything just stopped. No forwarding address. No final paycheck. Nothing. She was pregnant, Janelle said suddenly, doing the math. February 1986. That's when she would have been. I was born in January. She would have been 9 months along. Did she ever mention Chicago? Bethany asked. Ever talk about her time here? Janelle tried to remember, but her memories of her mother were fragmented at best, a patchwork of chaos and neglect. No, she never talked about before Detroit. I always assumed she'd grown up there. She didn't. She grew up in Lansing, moved to Chicago for work when she was 21. Bethany pulled out another document. I found this in the archives of a local newspaper. It's from March 1986. The newspaper clipping was yellowed with age, the text small and barely legible. But the headline was clear enough. Monroe Capital executive announces engagement to prominent socialite. Janelle read the article twice. Darius Monroe got engaged 3 weeks after my mother disappeared. To someone named Victoria Ashford. Ashford Pharmaceuticals, Simone said softly. My grandmother. They were married for 37 years. She died 4 years ago. Cancer. Did he love her? Janelle didn't know why she asked. It shouldn't matter. Very much, Simone said. They were devoted to each other. Everyone said so. Another piece of the puzzle that didn't fit. If Darius had been serious about Elena, why marry someone else weeks later? Unless the engagement was arranged, Bethany said, as if reading Janelle's mind. I found evidence of that too. Monroe Capital was having financial difficulties in early 1986. An infusion of capital from Ashford Pharmaceuticals saved the company. The marriage was, at least partly, a business arrangement. So he married for money while my mother was pregnant and alone. Anger kindled in Janelle's chest, hot and righteous. Or, Bethany said carefully, he married for money because someone convinced him Elena was gone and not coming back, and maybe made sure she stayed gone. Someone in his family, Janelle said slowly. Someone who wanted the Ashford marriage to happen. That would be Raymond Monroe, Simone said. Grandfather's younger brother. He was chief financial officer at the time. He was the one who negotiated the deal with Ashford Pharmaceuticals. The pieces were starting to come together, forming a picture that made Janelle's stomach churn. If Raymond knew about Elena, she said, and knew she was pregnant, he'd have every motivation to make her disappear, Bethany finished. A pregnant mistress would have torpedoed the Ashford deal. The family would have been furious. The engagement would have been called off. But why would my mother just leave? Why not fight? Demand child support at least. Bethany's expression was grim. I don't know. But I found this. She pulled out one more document, a bank statement from February 1986. $50,000 deposited into Elena Hartwell's account on the 10th of February 1986, withdrawn in cash 2 days later. After that, she closed the account and disappeared. $50,000. A payoff. Blood money to make a problem go away. She took the money and ran, Janelle said numbly. She sold me out before I was even born. She was 22 years old, pregnant, and probably terrified. Bethany said gently. Maybe someone threatened her. Maybe she thought it was her only choice. Or maybe she just didn't want me enough to fight. Janelle stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. I need air. She was halfway to the door when Simone called out, Wait, there's more. I don't want to hear more. Janelle. Simone's voice was gentle but insistent. This matters. The letter my grandfather received 6 weeks ago, the anonymous one that made him start investigating. Bethany, do you know what was in it? Not the full contents. But he showed me one thing. Bethany pulled out a photograph, clearly taken with a long lens. It showed Janelle leaving Rosalie's diner, her face clearly visible. On the back, in neat handwriting, Your past has a daughter. Find her before someone else does. Someone was watching me, Janelle whispered. Someone sent him this photo. Someone who knew the truth. Bethany agreed. And someone who wanted Darius to find you. The question is why? Protection, Simone said suddenly. Grandfather's been having health scares lately. Nothing serious, but enough to make him think about succession. About what happens to Monroe Capital when he's gone. If Janelle is his daughter, if that can be proven, she'd have a legal claim to part of the estate, which would dilute Raymond's share, Janelle said slowly. And Trevor's. Exactly. Someone sent that letter because they wanted Grandfather to know the truth. Either to protect Janelle, or to expose a secret that could destroy the family. Bethany finished. They stood in silence, the weight of 24 years of secrets pressing down on them like a physical thing. Janelle's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. If you want to know where Darius Monroe is, come alone to Millennium Park, Navy Pier entrance. 1 hour. Tell no one. She showed the phone to Bethany and Simone. It's a trap, Bethany said immediately. Probably, Janelle agreed. But it's also the only lead we have. Then I'm coming with you, Simone said. No. The text says alone. If we spook them, we might not get another chance. Janelle looked at Bethany. But maybe you could follow at a distance? Just in case? Bethany nodded slowly. I can do that. But Janelle, whoever's behind this, has made a billionaire disappear and kept secrets buried for 24 years. They're dangerous. If anything feels wrong, you run. Understood? Understood. But as Janelle left the office and headed toward the park, she couldn't shake the feeling that running wasn't going to be an option. Not anymore. Millennium Park in late afternoon was a study in contradictions, tourists and locals mixing in the golden light, children playing near the bean while business people hurried past on their way home. Janelle wove through the crowd, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. The Navy Pier entrance was on the far side of the park, near the lake. Janelle approached slowly, scanning for anything suspicious. But the only people nearby were a couple taking selfies, a jogger stretching by a bench, and a man in a black suit reading a newspaper. The man in the black suit looked up as she approached. Mid-30s, with sharp features and eyes that lingered a moment too long, he folded his newspaper deliberately and stood. "Janelle Hartwell?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Walk with me." He gestured toward the lakefront path, where the crowds thinned and the sound of the water drowned out casual conversation. "Don't worry. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Who are you?" "My name is Isaiah Grant. I work for Raymond Monroe. Or I did, until 3 days ago when I realized what he was planning." Janelle's pulse spiked. "Where's Darius?" "Safe, for now. But that won't last if we don't move quickly." Isaiah's pace was brisk, purposeful. "Raymond has him at a private estate in Lake Forest. Not hurt, but definitely not free to leave. Raymond's been planning this for weeks, ever since he found out Darius was looking for you." "How did Raymond find out?" "Because he's the one who's been paying Bethany Montgomery's receptionist for information. Marcus. The kid needs money for law school, and Raymond needs eyes on what his brother is investigating." Isaiah's expression was disgusted. "I didn't know about it until 2 days ago. I've worked for Raymond for 6 years. I thought he was a decent man. Turns out he's just good at hiding who he really is." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because what Raymond did 24 years ago was wrong, and what he's planning to do now is worse." Isaiah stopped walking, turned to face her fully. "Darius Monroe is a good man. He's done more for this city, for people who have nothing, than his entire family combined. Raymond's always resented that, always thought he deserved more credit, more money, more power. When Darius got involved with your mother, Raymond saw it as a threat to the Ashford deal. So he paid Elena to disappear and made sure Darius thought she'd left voluntarily." "The $50,000, Janelle said. "Exactly. But it wasn't just money. Raymond told Elena that if she ever came back, if she ever contacted Darius, he'd make sure she lost custody of her baby. He had lawyers draft documents, threaten her with lawsuits she couldn't afford to fight. She was terrified, so she took the money and ran. And now he's kidnapped his own brother to keep the secret buried." "Not kidnapped. Raymond's too smart for that. Officially, Darius is on a personal retreat, unreachable by choice. Raymond has forged emails, text messages, everything needed to make it look like Darius wanted to disappear for a while. By the time anyone realizes something's wrong, Raymond will have convinced the board that Darius is experiencing cognitive decline, maybe dementia. And guess who's next in line to take over Monroe Capital?" The scope of it was breathtaking. "How long does Darius have?" "The board meets in 3 days for quarterly review. Raymond's planning to present medical documentation fake, but convincing that Darius is no longer fit to lead. He'll call for a vote to remove him as CEO. Once that happens, Raymond takes over. And any claims you might make to the estate become infinitely harder to prove. So what do? You meet with him. Tomorrow. Raymond wants to offer you money to disappear, just like he did with your mother. He thinks you're like her, that everyone has a price. And if I refuse?" Isaiah's expression was grim. "Then he has backup plans. Legal challenges to your paternity claim. Character assassination he's already got. Investigators digging up every mistake you've ever made. He'll make you look like a gold digger, a fraud, whatever it takes. He's thought of everything. Raymond always does. But he's made one mistake." "What's that?" He assumed I'd stay loyal to him over what's right. I can get you into the estate tomorrow. Get you proof that Darius is being held against his will. With that proof, we can go to the police, the board, the media, whatever it takes to bring Raymond down. Janelle studied Isaiah's face, trying to read him. Why should I trust you? Because I sent the letter to Darius 6 weeks ago. The one with your photo. I found out what Raymond did to your mother, and I couldn't live with it. I thought if Darius knew the truth, he'd be able to protect you, make things right. Instead, I put you both in danger. His voice was thick with regret. Let me fix this, please. Somewhere behind them, hidden in the crowd, Bethany Montgomery was watching, recording, documenting everything. Janelle hoped she was close enough to capture this conversation. Okay, Janelle said finally. Tomorrow, but I want Simone there too. Too risky. If Raymond suspects, then we'll be careful. But I'm not doing this without her. Darius is her grandfather. She deserves to be part of saving him. Isaiah hesitated, then nodded. All right. I'll text you the address and time. Come separately. Park down the road. And Janelle, don't tell anyone else. The fewer people who know, the safer we all are. He walked away, disappearing into the crowd before Janelle could respond. She stood alone by the lake, watching the sun paint the water in shades of gold and crimson, and tried not to think about all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. Bethany Montgomery's apartment was a third-floor walk-up in Logan Square that smelled like coffee and ambition. Maps and photographs covered one wall, connected by red string like something out of a crime thriller. Simone sat on the couch, her cane propped beside her. Janelle paced. I don't like it, Bethany said for the third time. Too many variables. Isaiah could be legitimate, or he could be leading you straight into a trap. He knew details about my mother, Janelle argued. Things that weren't in your file, which he could have learned from Raymond. Think about it, Raymond's had weeks to prepare. Maybe Isaiah's whole defection is staged. Maybe they want you to come to the estate so they can... Bethany stopped. So they can what? Make me disappear too? I'm saying we should be prepared for anything. Simone spoke up, her voice calm and measured. What choice do we have? We can't go to the police without proof. We can't go to the board without evidence. If Darius is really at that estate, this might be our only chance to reach him. Then we do it smart, Bethany said. I come with you. Stay hidden, but close enough to intervene if needed. Isaiah said to come alone. Isaiah isn't running this operation. I am. Bethany's tone left no room for argument. I've got surveillance equipment, recording devices, backup contacts in law enforcement. We go in prepared, or we don't go at all. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Bethany pulled up satellite images of the Lake Forest estate, 15 acres of manicured grounds, a main house that looked more like a castle, security cameras visible even from aerial view. She marked potential entry points, escape routes, blind spots in the camera coverage. Raymond's got private security, she said, pointing to small buildings near the perimeter. Probably 4 to 6 guards on rotation. They're not going to be mall cops. These are professionals, former military or law enforcement. So we can't just walk in, Janelle said. No. But if Isaiah really does have access, he can get you past the gate. Once you're inside, you need to find Darius. Get evidence that he's being held against his will, video, audio, something concrete, and get out. 20 minutes max. What if Raymond's there? Then you improvise. Record everything. Get him talking. Rich men love to monologue about their clever plans. Bethany's smile was sharp. Ego's a useful weakness. Janelle's phone buzzed. A text from Isaiah. Estate address, 1847 Sheridan Road, Lake Forest. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Come to the service entrance on the north side. I'll be waiting. Service entrance, Bethany muttered. Smart. Less visible than the main gate. What about me? Simone asked. What's my role? You stay in the car with Bethany, Janelle said. Absolutely not. Simone, he's my grandfather. Janelle. I'm not sitting in a car while you risk your life for him. Simone's jaw was set, that same stubborn determination Janelle recognized from their first meeting. I know that house. I've been there dozens of times for family gatherings. I know the layout, where the cameras are, which rooms have panic buttons. You need me. Janelle looked at Bethany, who sighed. She's not wrong. Someone familiar with the estate is valuable. Fine, but you both stay close to me. You do exactly what I say, and if anything goes wrong, we abort immediately. Agreed? Agreed, they said in unison. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of preparation. Bethany distributed small recording devices that looked like buttons, lapel pins, earrings. She programmed emergency contacts into their phones. One press of the power button 5 times would trigger a silent distress call to 3 different people. Worst-case scenario, she said. You're looking at kidnapping charges for Raymond, false imprisonment, conspiracy. Best case, you walk out with Darius and enough evidence to bury the man. And if Isaiah is working with Raymond, then you hope I'm as good at my job as I think I am, and that I can get to you before anything permanent happens. Comforting. Janelle left around midnight, exhausted and wired in equal measure. She took an Uber back to her apartment in Rogers Park, where Keisha was still awake despite the late hour, sprawled on the couch watching something on her laptop. Where were you? Keisha asked without looking up. Work thing? It's complicated. It's always complicated. Keisha's tone was flat, disinterested, but Janelle caught the hurt underneath. Hey. Janelle sat on the arm of the couch. I know I've been absent lately. I know. I'm not winning any Mother of the Year awards. But I'm trying to fix something big that might change things for us, for the better. Keisha finally looked at her. Skepticism clear in every line of her face. What kind of something? How could she even begin to explain family stuff about my mom, your grandmother, the drug addict who abandoned you? Janelle flinched. Yeah, her. Turns out there's more to that story than I knew. There always is. Keisha returned her attention to the laptop. Just don't get your hopes up, Mom. Things don't actually get better. They just get different. 17 years old, and already so cynical. Janelle's heart broke a little. Well, she said, standing. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time we'll catch a break. Maybe, Keisha said. But she didn't sound convinced. Janelle went to bed but didn't sleep. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about her mother at 22, pregnant, scared, paid to disappear. Had she wanted to keep Janelle? Had she fought against Raymond's threats? Or had $50,000 been enough to make her walk away without a second thought? And Darius, what kind of man was he? The newspapers called him a visionary, a philanthropist. Simone clearly loved him. But he'd married someone else 3 weeks after Elena disappeared. Had he looked for her? Had he cared? Or had he been relieved when the problem solved itself? Too many questions. Not enough answers. And tomorrow, Janelle would walk into the home of a man who'd made her mother disappear and try to rescue a father she'd never known she had. Simple. The drive to Lake Forest took 45 minutes in Bethany's nondescript sedan. They barely spoke, each lost in their own thoughts. The landscape shifted from urban to suburban to something approaching rural wide lawns, iron gates, houses set so far back from the road they were barely visible. Old money, Bethany muttered. The kind of wealth that's been here so long it looks permanent. They parked 3 blocks from the estate, on a quiet side street, shaded by massive oaks. Bethany checked their recording devices one more time, made sure their phones were fully charged, and went over the plan again. You go to the service entrance, she said. Isaiah lets you in. You find Darius. Get proof of life, and that he's being held against his will. You record everything. If you're not out in 30 minutes, I'm calling the police. What if we need more time? Then text me. But Janelle, 30 minutes is already pushing it. The longer you're in there, the more likely something goes wrong. Janelle and Simone climbed out of the car. The afternoon sun was merciless, bright and hot. Janelle was glad she'd worn light clothes, jeans, a simple tank top, sneakers, Simone had dressed similarly, her cane a white slash against the summer colors. They walked the 3 blocks in silence, following the estate's perimeter wall until they reached the north side. The service entrance was unmarked, just a narrow gate set into the stone wall. It opened as they approached. Isaiah stood on the other side, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt that made him look like staff. "You're on time! Good! Where's Darius?" Simone demanded. "East wing, 2nd floor. But we need to move carefully. Raymond's in his study on the main floor, and there are 2 guards patrolling the grounds. If we time this right, we can get to Darius without being seen." He led them through a garden that looked like it belonged in a magazine, roses and lavender, stone pathways, a fountain bubbling quietly. The house loomed above them, all clean lines and expensive materials. They entered through what appeared to be a mudroom, passed through a kitchen that could have serviced a restaurant, and reached a service staircase. "This leads directly to the east wing," Isaiah said quietly. "The guards don't usually patrol this section during the day, but be quiet anyway." They climbed the stairs, Simone moving with practiced ease despite her lack of sight. Janelle's heart was a drum in her chest, so loud she was sure someone would hear it. The east wing hallway was carpeted in thick burgundy, lined with artwork that probably cost more than Janelle's entire life. Isaiah stopped outside a door near the end of the hall. "He's in here," he whispered. "The door's locked from the outside. I've got a key." "Why is he locked in?" Janelle asked, her voice barely audible. "Raymond's orders. Said it was for Darius's own protection. That he was confused and might hurt himself." Isaiah's disgust was clear. "It's bullshit, but the staff believes it because they want to." He unlocked the door. It swung open silently. The room beyond was large and comfortable, a bedroom suite with a sitting area, ensuite bathroom, windows overlooking the lake. And sitting in a leather chair by those windows, dressed in casual clothes with his signature white fedora on the table beside him, was a man who could only be Darius Kincaid Monroe. He looked up as they entered, and the recognition in his eyes when he saw Simone was immediate and profound. "Simone," he said, standing quickly, "what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here." "Grandfather." She was across the room in 3 strides, her arms around him. "Are you okay? What happened? Everyone's been looking for you." "I'm fine, sweetheart. He stopped, his gaze shifting to Janelle. She saw the moment he recognized her. Saw it in the way his expression shifted from confusion to shock to something that looked painfully like hope. "Elena," he whispered. "No," Janelle said softly. "I'm Janelle. Janelle Hartwell, Elena's daughter." Darius sat back down abruptly, as if his legs wouldn't hold him. "My God, you look just like her, exactly like her." "We need to move," Isaiah said urgently. "We can have a reunion later. Right now, we need to get you out of here before Raymond realizes." The door opened behind them. Raymond Monroe stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 security guards with the build and bearing of professional enforcers. He was shorter than Darius, stockier, with sharp eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. "Before Raymond realizes what?" he said pleasantly. "That you've betrayed him, Isaiah? That you've brought unauthorized visitors into my home? That you're attempting to abduct my brother, who is here voluntarily for his own health and safety?" "That's a lie," Simone said fiercely. "He's locked in. You're holding him prisoner." "I'm protecting him," Raymond corrected, "from himself and from opportunists who would take advantage of a vulnerable old man." His gaze fixed on Janelle with the force of a laser. "Opportunists like you, Miss Hartwell." "I didn't ask for any of this," Janelle said. "No, but you're here anyway. Just like your mother showing up where you don't belong, making demands you have no right to make." Raymond stepped into the room, the guards moving with him. "Elena was smart enough to take the money and leave. I'm prepared to make you the same offer. $1 million, more than enough to set you up for life. Send your daughter to any college she wants. All you have to do is sign paperwork, relinquishing any claim to the Monroe estate, and walk away. And if I refuse, then things get complicated." Legal battles that will drain your resources. Investigations into your background that will make you look like a fraud and a con artist. I have the power and the money to make your life very difficult, Miss Hartwell. Or I can make it very easy. Your choice. Darius stood again, his voice carrying the weight of command even in these circumstances. Raymond, this is insane. Janelle is my daughter. Elena was I cared about her. If I'd known she was pregnant, if I'd known you paid her to disappear, you'd have what? Thrown away the Ashford deal? Bankrupted our family? You always were too sentimental, Darius. That's why I've had to clean up your messes for decades. Raymond's mask of pleasantness was slipping, revealing genuine anger beneath. I saved this company. I made sure we survived when your poor decisions nearly destroyed us. And I won't let some waitress and her bastard child undo everything I've built. That's enough, Isaiah said, but his voice shook slightly. Raymond turned on him with withering contempt. And you? Did you really think I didn't know? I've been monitoring every move you've made for the past week. Every call, every message. I know you sent the letter to Darius. I know you've been feeding information to that detective. Did you think I got where I am by being careless? The guards moved closer, one of them reaching for Janelle's arm. She jerked back. Don't touch her, Darius said sharply. Or what, brother? What exactly are you going to do from in there? You've already been deemed unfit by 3 physicians I trust. The board meets tomorrow to vote on your removal. By this time next week, I'll be CEO, and any paternity claims from Miss Hartwell will be tied up in court for years. You've lost. Accept it with grace. I'm recording this, Simone said suddenly. Everything you just said. It's being recorded and transmitted to a third party. You just confessed to coercion, false imprisonment, and conspiracy. Raymond's expression flickered just for a moment, uncertainty crossing his face. Then he smiled. No, you're not. I've had signal jammers running in this house for the past 3 days. Nothing transmits in or out without my knowledge. Your recording devices are useless. Janelle's blood turned to ice. She glanced at Isaiah, who looked equally horrified. Now, Raymond continued, here's what's going to happen. Isaiah, you're going to leave this house and never return. I'll let you go quietly, but if I ever see you again, I'll have you charged with trespassing and attempted kidnapping. The guards will escort you out. No, Isaiah said. But the guards were already moving, grabbing his arms. Miss Hartwell and Miss Monroe, you're going to leave as well, and you're going to forget everything you heard here today, because if you don't, I have evidence fabricated, but convincing that you attempted to extort money from a confused elderly man, that you manipulated Simone and attempted to steal from the Monroe estate. I'll bury you. You can't do this, Janelle said, but even to her own ears, it sounded weak. I can, and I am. Darius stays here, receiving the medical care he needs until the board makes its decision, and you stay silent, or face consequences you can't imagine. Grandfather, Simone's voice broke. It's okay, sweetheart, Darius said, but his voice carried a weight of defeat that was painful to hear. Go. Don't fight him. Not like this. I'm calling the police, Janelle said, pulling out her phone. With what evidence? A locked door? I'll say Darius locked it himself, for privacy. Guards on the property? Perfectly legal. The only thing you have is your word against mine. And I promise you, Miss Hartwell, my word carries a great deal more weight. He was right. The realization settled over Janelle like a shroud. Without the recordings, without concrete proof, they had nothing. Raymond had thought of everything. The guards began moving them toward the door. Janelle locked eyes with Darius one more time, saw the apology there, the regret, and something else, a fierce determination that belied the defeat in his voice. Remember, Darius said quietly, that sometimes the best move is to retreat and regroup. Don't fight a battle you can't win, fight the war. It sounded like advice. It felt like a message. They were escorted out the way they'd come, through the garden and out the service entrance. The gate closed behind them with a finality that echoed like a cell door. Simone was shaking with fury. "We can't just leave him there! We can't!" "We don't have a choice," Janelle said, though every instinct screamed at her to turn around and fight. Not right now. They walked back to where Bethany waited. She took one look at their faces and knew what happened. Janelle explained everything: Raymond's appearance, the signal jammers, the threats, the complete and utter defeat of their plan. Bethany was quiet for a long moment. Then, "He made a mistake." "What?" "Raymond. He made a mistake." Bethany pulled out her laptop, opened it, started typing. "He thinks he's blocked all transmissions from the house, but what he's actually blocked are wireless signals, Wi-Fi, cellular, Bluetooth. The recording devices I gave you, they're not transmitting, they're storing everything locally. Battery life of 72 hours. As long as you don't get near any strong magnets or electromagnetic pulses, the recordings are intact." Janelle pulled the button camera from her shirt. "You mean..." "I mean, we got everything. Raymond's confession, his threats, all of it. We have proof." Simone let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Can we take it to the police now?" "Better," Bethany said. "We take it to the board. Tomorrow's meeting. We show them exactly who Raymond Monroe is, and we let them decide what happens next. The tables are turning, but Raymond's not finished yet. What Janelle doesn't know is that the board meeting isn't the only thing happening tomorrow. And the real question isn't whether they can expose Raymond. It's whether they'll survive long enough to do it." Monroe Capital Group's boardroom occupied the entire 45th floor, with windows that overlooked all of Chicago. Janelle had never been in a space like it: all polished wood and expensive art, leather chairs that probably cost more than her car. The air itself seemed to carry weight, the accumulated power of billions of dollars and decades of decisions that shaped the city below. She stood outside the boardroom doors at 9:55 a.m., flanked by Simone on one side and Bethany on the other. Isaiah was there too, looking pale but determined. In Bethany's bag was the recording device, the digital equivalent of a nuclear bomb. The board meeting was scheduled to begin at 10. Raymond would present his case for Darius's removal, backed by falsified medical documentation and the weight of his own authority. The vote would happen quickly. Raymond had spent weeks laying groundwork, ensuring he had the support he needed. But they had one advantage Raymond didn't know about: Veronica. Darius's assistant had spent the night working her own network, calling board members she'd known for decades, planting seeds of doubt about Raymond's story. She couldn't tell them everything, not without proof, but she could make them hesitate. She could buy Janelle the time she needed to present the truth. At 9:58, the elevator opened, and Raymond Monroe stepped out. He stopped when he saw them, his expression cycling through surprise, anger, and finally settling on cold calculation. He was dressed in an immaculate gray suit, every inch the successful executive. Behind him were his lawyer and two other men Janelle didn't recognize. "Miss Hartwell," he said pleasantly, "I'm surprised to see you here. This is a private board meeting. You're not authorized to attend." "I have information relevant to today's agenda," Janelle said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Information the board needs to hear before they make any decisions." "Do you now?" Raymond's smile was thin. "And what information would that be? More conspiracy theories? Accusations you can't prove?" "I can prove all of it," Janelle said, and she saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "I see. Well, you're welcome to request time on the agenda, but I can't guarantee the board will grant it. They're very busy people." The boardroom doors opened. Veronica stood in the doorway, her expression professional, but her eyes bright with something like vindication. "The board has agreed to hear from Miss Hartwell," she said. "Before any votes are taken." Raymond's jaw tightened fractionally. "That's irregular. So is attempting to remove a sitting CEO based on fabricated medical evidence," Veronica replied coolly. The board felt it prudent to hear all relevant information before proceeding. Raymond and his lawyer exchanged a look. Then, with visible effort, Raymond's pleasant mask returned. "Of course. We're all interested in the truth here. Please, Miss Hartwell, enlighten us. They filed into the boardroom. The board itself consisted of 10 people, a mix of ages, genders, and backgrounds, but all of them carrying the particular confidence that came with significant wealth and power. They studied Janelle with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism to outright hostility. Veronica made introductions. Janelle recognized some names from Bethany's Research Legacy board members who'd been with the company since its founding, newer additions who'd come on in the past decade. Raymond took his seat at the head of the table, radiating authority. Now that we're all here, let's begin. As you know, I've called this emergency meeting to address a difficult but necessary situation. My brother, Darius, has been experiencing symptoms that suggest cognitive decline. I have documentation from 3 separate physicians. Before you continue, Janelle interrupted, I'd like to share some information the board should consider. Raymond's expression hardened. Miss Hartwell, I don't think you understand the gravity of— I understand perfectly, she cut in. I understand that you're attempting to remove your brother from control of his own company based on lies. I understand that 24 years ago, you paid my mother $50,000 to disappear when she was pregnant with Darius Monroe's child. I understand that 2 days ago, you held Darius against his will at your Lake Forest estate and threatened me if I didn't agree to walk away and stay silent. And I understand that you've underestimated me. The room went silent. Every eye was on Raymond, watching for his reaction. He laughed. It was a good laugh, genuinely amused, slightly condescending. These are extraordinary claims, Miss Hartwell. Do you have any proof, or are we simply supposed to take your word? Janelle nodded to Bethany, who pulled out the recording device and a small speaker. She set them on the conference table. This is audio from yesterday, Janelle said. Raymond's own words, recorded without his knowledge. She pressed play. Raymond's voice filled the room, crystal clear. I'm protecting him from himself, and from opportunists who would take advantage of a vulnerable old man. Opportunists like you, Miss Hartwell. Then her own voice. I didn't ask for any of this. Raymond again. No, but you're here anyway. Just like your mother showing up where you don't belong, making demands you have no right to make, Elena was smart enough to take the money and leave. I'm prepared to make you the same offer. $1 million. The recording played on. Raymond's confession about paying Elena to disappear. His threats, his admission that the medical documentation was falsified. His plan to take control of the company. The board members' faces were studies in shock and growing anger. When the recording ended, the silence was profound. Raymond was no longer smiling. That recording was obtained illegally. It's inadmissible in any court of law. This isn't a court, said Margaret Chen, one of the longest-serving board members. This is a private company's board meeting, and we're entitled to consider any information relevant to our decision-making process. The recording could be fake, Raymond's lawyer interjected. Deepfake technology. Can be verified, Bethany said calmly. I'm prepared to testify as to the recording's authenticity, as is Isaiah Grant, who was present during the conversation. We can also provide corroborating evidence, bank records showing the $50,000 payment to Elena Hartwell in 1986, documentation of the Ashford Pharmaceuticals deal that Raymond negotiated immediately after, witness testimony from multiple sources. Furthermore, Simone added, my grandfather is being held at Raymond's estate under the pretense of medical care. I was there yesterday. He's locked in, not by his own choice, by Raymond's orders. That's kidnapping, false imprisonment, probably a dozen other charges. The board members were conferring in low voices, shock and concern evident on every face. This is absurd, Raymond said, his composure finally cracking. You're all going to believe a waitress and a blind girl over me? I've served this company for 40 years. I've sacrificed everything for Monroe Capital. And you're going to trust some recording that could have been edited, manipulated. I've heard enough, said David Thompson, another senior board member. Margaret, I move that we table the vote on Darius's removal pending a full investigation into these allegations. Seconded, Margaret said immediately. "This is outrageous." Raymond stood abruptly. "You can't." "We can," Margaret cut in, her voice ice. "And we are. Furthermore, I move that Raymond Monroe be immediately suspended from all duties pending the outcome of said investigation." "Seconded," said another board member. The vote was unanimous. Raymond's face had gone from red to white to a mottled purple that suggested his blood pressure was approaching dangerous levels. "You're making a mistake, all of you. When this investigation finds nothing, and it will find nothing, I'll remember who stood against me today. Get out." "Raymond," Margaret said quietly. "Security will see you out." 2 security guards had appeared in the doorway, summoned by someone Janelle hadn't seen move. They approached Raymond with professional calm. For a moment, Janelle thought he might fight, might scream and rage and refuse to go, but instead he straightened his tie, picked up his briefcase, and walked out with his head high. Only when he'd passed Janelle did he pause. "This isn't over," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "You've won a battle, but the war? That's just beginning." Then he was gone. Janelle's legs gave out. She sat heavily in the nearest chair, her whole body shaking with adrenaline and relief. Margaret approached her, her expression softer than before. "Miss Hartwell, on behalf of the board, I apologize for Raymond's actions and for any harm they've caused you and your family. We'll be launching a full investigation, as promised. But in the meantime, we need to retrieve Darius. Will you help us?" "Of course," Janelle said. "And we'll need to verify your parentage claim. If you're willing to submit to genetic testing." "I am." Margaret nodded. "Then let's go get Darius. Together." The Lake Forest estate looked different in daylight, less imposing and more simply expensive. Margaret Chen had brought 2 board members, legal counsel, and enough security to ensure Raymond's guards wouldn't interfere. They entered through the main gate this time, no more sneaking through service entrances. The estate manager met them at the door, her professional composure barely masking her anxiety. Word had clearly traveled fast. "We're here for Darius Monroe," Margaret said, her tone brooking no argument. "Take us to him. Now." The manager led them through the house past opulent rooms that spoke of generations of wealth, and up the stairs to the east wing. The door to Darius's room was still locked from the outside. "Open it," Margaret ordered. The manager complied, her hands shaking slightly as she turned the key. Darius stood by the window, still dressed in the casual clothes from yesterday. He turned as they entered, and relief flooded his features. "Margaret, thank God." He crossed the room quickly, grasped her hand. "Raymond has been suspended from all duties pending investigation," Margaret said. "The board knows everything, Darius. We're here to bring you home." The emotion that crossed his face was complex relief, vindication, exhaustion. Then his eyes found Janelle, standing near the back of the group. "Janelle," he said softly. She stepped forward, suddenly shy. "What did you say to a father you'd just discovered? A father who'd been kept from you by lies and manipulation and $50,000 in blood money?" "Hi," she managed. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. For not knowing about you. For not protecting your mother. For," his voice caught, "for missing 39 years of your life." "It's not your fault," Janelle said. "Raymond, he made sure we never knew about each other. But I should have looked for her. When Elena disappeared, I should have—" Darius shook his head. "I convinced myself she'd left because she wanted to, because our relationship was inconvenient, because the Ashford marriage made more sense for the company. I let myself believe the easy lie instead of asking the hard questions." "You didn't know," Simone said, coming to stand beside Janelle. "None of us knew. But we know now, and we have a chance to make it right." Darius looked between his granddaughter and his daughter, one he'd raised, one he'd never known, and something in his expression shifted, determination replacing regret. "Then let's make it right," he said. They left the estate together. The drive back to the city felt different, lighter somehow, despite all the complications that lay ahead. Legal battles, paternity tests, family drama that would make headlines, Raymond's inevitable counterattack. But for now, in the back of Margaret's town car, Janelle sat beside her father and tried to process the seismic shift her life had just taken. "Tell me about your daughter," Darius said. "My granddaughter. Simone's told me a little, but I want to hear it from you." So Janelle talked about Keisha's brilliance and her anger, about the scholarship applications she couldn't afford to submit, about the bright future that seemed perpetually out of reach, no matter how hard they worked. "She sounds remarkable," Darius said when Janelle finished. "Just like her mother." "I'm not remarkable. I'm a waitress who can barely pay rent. You're a single mother who's raised an intelligent, ambitious daughter while working 2 jobs and surviving circumstances that would have broken most people. You helped my granddaughter when she was lost, even though you had no obligation to. You risked everything to expose Raymond's lies and save a man you'd never met. That's the definition of remarkable." Janelle felt tears prickling her eyes. She blinked them back. "I don't know how to do this. How to be someone's daughter after 39 years of being nobody's anything." "You're not nobody's anything," Darius said gently. "You're Janelle Hartwell. You're Elena's daughter. You're Keisha's mother. And if you'll have me, you're my daughter. We'll figure out the rest as we go." The paternity test took 3 days to come back. Darius insisted on the most reputable lab, the most thorough analysis, wanting no room for anyone to question the results. Janelle spent those 3 days in a strange limbo, still going to work at the diner because she couldn't afford not to, but aware that everything was about to change. The media had gotten wind of the story. Billionaire CEO's secret daughter exposes family conspiracy. Monroe Capital in turmoil, as brothers suspended amid kidnapping allegations. Single mom waitress might be heir to fortune. Reporters showed up at the diner. At her apartment building, outside Keisha's school, Bethany ran interference where she could, but there was no putting this genie back in the bottle. "This is insane," Keisha said on the second night, staring at the news coverage on her laptop. "Is it true? Is that guy really your dad?" "Maybe," Janelle said. "Probably. We're waiting for the test results. So we might be rich?" "It's not about the money, Keish," says the person who's 3 months behind on rent. Keisha's tone was sharp, but her eyes were wide with something that looked like hope. "Mom, if this is real, if he's really your dad, everything changes. I could go to college. Any college. You could stop killing yourself working 2 jobs. We could have a life," Janelle finished softly. "Yeah, we could." On the 3rd day, Margaret Chen called. "The results are in. Darius wants you to come to his office. He wants to tell you in person." Janelle took a personal day from the diner, the first she'd taken in 2 years. She dressed in the nicest clothes she owned, which still felt woefully inadequate for the Monroe Capitol building. Simone met her in the lobby. "Whatever the results say," Simone told her, "you're my sister. That's not changing." The words hit Janelle like a physical thing. Sister. She'd never had a sister before. Never had siblings of any kind. The idea of it was overwhelming and wonderful in equal measure. They rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, where Veronica greeted them with a smile that suggested she already knew the results. She led them to Darius's office, where he stood by the windows overlooking the lake, his signature white suit brilliant in the afternoon sun. He turned as they entered, and Janelle saw the answer in his eyes before he said a word. "You're my daughter," he said simply. 99.9% certainty. No room for doubt. The relief was staggering. Janelle hadn't realized how much she'd been bracing for rejection until it was no longer a possibility. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now," Darius said, "we catch up on 39 years. We get to know each other. We figure out what kind of relationship we want to have. And we make sure you and Keisha are taken care of immediately." He gestured to a stack of papers on his desk. "I've had my lawyers draw up documents. A trust fund for Keisha's education, enough to cover any school she wants to attend, plus living expenses and a cushion for whatever comes after. A separate account for you. Enough that you never have to worry about rent or bills or working yourself to exhaustion again. You'll both have access within 48 hours. "I don't want your money," Janelle said automatically. I know, which is exactly why I want you to have it. Darius's smile was gentle. This isn't charity, Janelle. This is compensation, maybe, for all the years I should have been there and wasn't. It's making sure my daughter and granddaughter have the opportunities they deserve. Please, let me do this. Janelle looked at Simone, who nodded encouragingly. Okay, Janelle said finally. Thank you, Darius corrected, for giving me a second chance, for forgiving sins I didn't even know I'd committed. They spent the next 3 hours talking. Darius wanted to know everything Janelle's childhood, her struggles, her dreams. He asked about Elena, and Janelle told him the hard truth, that her mother had never spoken of him, had died bitter and broken and alone. I wish I'd known, Darius said, his voice thick with regret. I wish I could have helped her. Me too, Janelle said. But dwelling on what could have been wouldn't change what was. And what was, Janelle was slowly realizing, was the beginning of something new. Something that felt tentatively like family. Raymond Monroe didn't go quietly. 2 weeks after his suspension, he launched a multi-pronged attack. A lawsuit alleging that the recording was obtained illegally, a media campaign suggesting that Janelle was a con artist who'd manipulated Darius. Private investigators digging into every aspect of Janelle's life, looking for anything that could be used against her. He's desperate, Bethany explained during one of their strategy sessions in Darius's office. He knows he's losing control, so he's lashing out. We just need to weather the storm. But the storm was intense. Tabloids ran stories about Janelle's past, exaggerated or fabricated details about her mother's addiction, insinuations about Keisha's father, suggestions that Janelle had known about Darius all along and had deliberately positioned herself to be discovered. Keisha started getting harassed at school. Janelle got death threats on social media. Someone spray-painted "Gold Digger" on her apartment building. This has to stop, Janelle said after a particularly brutal day of headlines. Maybe I should just walk away. Take the money for Keisha's education and disappear. Let Raymond have his company. No, Darius said firmly. That's exactly what he wants. He's trying to break you, make you quit. Don't give him the satisfaction. But Keisha is safe. I've hired security for both of you. Professional, discreet, effective. Raymond can throw all the mud he wants, but he can't touch you. Not while I'm here. The Monroe Capital Board launched their investigation, bringing in external auditors and forensic accountants. What they found was damning. Raymond had been embezzling from the company for years, small amounts at first, then increasingly brazen. He'd used company resources for personal expenses, funneled money to offshore accounts, and falsified records to cover his tracks. He must have known he'd eventually be caught, Margaret told them during an emergency board meeting. That's why he was so desperate to take control. As CEO, he could have buried the evidence permanently. The board voted unanimously to terminate Raymond's employment and pursue criminal charges. The police arrested him at his Lake Forest estate on a Tuesday morning, in front of cameras that broadcast his humiliation to the entire city. Janelle watched the news coverage with complicated feelings. Relief that the threat was neutralized, pity for a man who'd let greed and resentment destroy him, and a lingering sadness for all the pain he'd caused to Elena, to her, to his own brother. Do you think he'll go to prison? Simone asked. Probably, Darius said. The evidence is overwhelming. Embezzlement, false imprisonment, conspiracy. His lawyers will try to make a deal, but... He shook his head. Raymond made his choices. Now he has to live with the consequences. 3 months after Janelle had helped a lost young woman find her grandfather, she stood in the kitchen of a 3-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park, her new home, courtesy of her father's generosity and her own newfound financial security. Keisha sat at the island, filling out her early decision application to Northwestern. She'd been accepted to 7 schools, but Northwestern had always been her dream. Now, thanks to the trust fund Darius had established, she could attend without crushing debt. Mom, Keisha said without looking up, how do I write an essay about all this without sounding insane? Stick to the truth, Janelle suggested. It's insane enough on its own. Her daughter smiled a real smile, not the bitter, defensive expression she'd worn for so long. The anger was still there, but it had softened, tempered by possibility and hope. Janelle's phone buzzed. A text from Darius. "Dinner Sunday at my place? Want you and Keisha to meet some extended family, the good kind, not the Raymond kind." She texted back, "We'll be there." It was strange, having a father. Having a sister in Simone, who called her daily just to talk, having resources and security and a future that looked nothing like the grinding survival she'd known for 39 years. "Do you miss it?" Keisha asked suddenly. "The diner, I mean. Your old life." Janelle considered the question. "Parts of it," she said honestly. "I miss Rita. I miss the regularity, the routine. I miss knowing exactly where I stood and what was expected of me. This," she gestured vaguely at the apartment, at their new life. "This is wonderful, but it's also terrifying. Like walking on ice that might crack at any moment." "But you're not going back." "No, I'm not going back." She'd given Rosalie's diner 2 weeks' notice, enough time for them to find a replacement. Rita had cried and told her she deserved every good thing coming her way. The regulars had thrown her a goodbye party, complete with a cake and a card signed by people who'd barely noticed her for 6 years. Janelle had cried too, mourning the end of one chapter even as she embraced the beginning of another. Now, she was taking classes at Northwestern Journalism, the degree she'd abandoned 20 years ago. Darius had offered her a position at Monroe Capital, but she'd declined. She needed to build something of her own. Something that wasn't just an extension of his wealth and success. "I'm thinking of writing a book," she'd told him last week. "About Mom. About what happened to her. What happens to women like her, young, ambitious, caught between powerful men who see them as disposable." "I think that's a brilliant idea," Darius had said. "And painful. And necessary." It would be all those things. But Janelle was ready for it. Ready to tell Elena's story. To reclaim the narrative from people like Raymond who'd tried to bury it. The doorbell rang. Simone, right on time for their weekly lunch date. She'd become a fixture in Janelle's life. A bridge between the past and the future. "I brought sushi," Simone announced, letting herself in with the easy familiarity of family. "And gossip. You will not believe what Trevor tried to pull at the last board meeting." Trevor Raymond's son, recently appointed to a junior position on the board despite his father's disgrace, had been causing minor chaos, trying to prove he wasn't his father. It was equal parts amusing and exhausting. They ate lunch on the balcony, overlooking a view Janelle still couldn't quite believe was hers. Simone caught them up on Monroe Capital drama. Keisha asked Simone questions about navigating the world as a blind professional. The conversation flowed easy and natural, the way family conversations should. Later, after Simone left and Keisha returned to her applications, Janelle found herself thinking about that day 3 months ago. The day she'd helped a lost young woman in a diner and set in motion a chain of events that had transformed everything. One small act of kindness. That's all it had been. Help someone who needed help. And it had led to this, to family, to truth, to justice, to a future she'd never dared to imagine. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text from an unknown number. "Janelle. It's Isaiah. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted you to know the DA offered me immunity in exchange for testimony against Raymond. I'm taking it. He's going to pay for what he did. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to stop him sooner." Janelle stared at the message for a long moment, then replied, "Thank you for doing the right thing eventually. That matters." It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Sometimes people found courage late. Sometimes they made amends imperfectly. The world was messy and complicated, and second chances were precious things. She thought about Darius, about the second chance she'd given him, about the second chance life had given her, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, good things could come from the most unexpected places. The grand reopening of the Elena Hartwell Memorial Scholarship Foundation took place on a bright Saturday in June in a renovated community center on Chicago's South Side. The center would provide resources for single mothers pursuing education, tutoring, childcare, financial assistance, mentorship. "My mother never got a second chance," Janelle told the crowd gathered for the ribbon cutting. "She made mistakes, and the world punished her for them until she stopped believing she deserved anything better." This foundation is for all the Elenas out there, women who need support, not judgment, who need opportunities, not obstacles. Darius stood beside her, resplendent in his white suit and fedora, pride radiating from every inch of him. Simone held the scissors for the ribbon cutting, having insisted she wanted to be the one to officially open the center. Keisha was there too, along with Rita from the diner, Bethany Montgomery, Veronica, and a dozen other people who'd become part of Janelle's expanded universe. Even Margaret Chen had shown up, bearing a substantial donation from the Monroe Capital Charitable Foundation. The media coverage was extensive, but mostly positive. The narrative had shifted over the past 6 months, from gold digger to single mom fights back, to woman honors mother's memory with Scholarship Foundation. Janelle didn't love being a public figure, but she'd learned to use the platform for good. Raymond's trial was set to begin in 3 weeks. His lawyers were still trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA was pushing for significant prison time. Darius would have to testify, as would Janelle. It would be painful and public, but necessary. "You ready for that?" Simone had asked last week. "No," Janelle had answered honestly, "but I'm doing it anyway." After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled and toured the facility, Darius pulled Janelle aside. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small velvet box. Janelle opened it to find a necklace, a delicate gold chain with a pendant shaped like a compass rose. "Your mother gave me something similar," Darius explained. "Years ago, when we first started seeing each other, she said everyone needs a compass to find their way home. I wore it for years, until she disappeared, and I convinced myself I needed to forget her." His voice was rough with emotion. "I had this made for you, so you'll always be able to find your way home, and so you'll know that you and Keisha and Elena's memory, you're all home now, with family, where you belong." Janelle's vision blurred with tears. She let Darius fasten the necklace around her neck, felt the weight of it settle against her sternum. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for not giving up, for fighting for the truth, for being my dad." The words still felt strange in her mouth, but it was getting easier. Dad, father, family. Darius pulled her into a hug, and Janelle let herself lean into it. Let herself be someone's daughter, someone's family, someone who belonged. "I'm the one who should be thanking you," Darius said. "You gave me back a piece of myself I didn't even know was missing. You gave me a second chance to do right by Elena, even if it's too late to help her directly. You gave me another daughter, another granddaughter, another reason to make sure Monroe Capital stands for something good in this world." They stood there for a moment, father and daughter, surrounded by the noise and bustle of the foundation's opening. Around them, single mothers filled out applications, asked questions about resources, held their children's hands while daring to dream about futures that might be possible after all. Elena's legacy. Not the pain and the addiction and the early death, but this hope and opportunity and second chances. Janelle touched the compass pendant at her throat and thought about journeys. About getting lost and being found, about the random acts of kindness that change everything, about a single mom who'd helped a blind girl find her grandfather, and in doing so, had found her own way home. The Chicago Tribune ran a feature article on the first anniversary of the Elena Hartwell Memorial Scholarship Foundation. By then, the foundation had helped 87 women complete or continue their educations. 15 had graduated. 3 had gone on to graduate school. 1 had started her own business with a small business loan the foundation had helped her secure. Janelle was quoted extensively in the article, having overcome her initial reluctance to embrace her public role. She'd published an essay in the New York Times about her mother's story, and a literary agent had reached out about expanding it into a book. Keisha had finished her first year at Northwestern with a 3.9 gigapascals and was spending the summer interning at a nonprofit that provided legal services to low-income families. She'd started a campus organization for first-generation college students and had been featured in a university promotional video that made Janelle cry every time she watched it. Simone had been promoted to a senior position at Monroe Capital, despite or perhaps because of the fact that she was blind. She'd become a vocal advocate for disability inclusion in corporate America, and Darius couldn't have been prouder. Darius himself had stepped back from day-to-day operations, transitioning to an advisory role while grooming a successor who wasn't family. "We've learned our lesson about nepotism," he'd joked during the announcement, though the board meeting where Raymond had been exposed was no longer a joke to anyone. He spent more time on philanthropy now, more time with family. Sunday dinners had become a tradition. Darius's Lincoln Park mansion, filled with Janelle, Keisha, Simone, Veronica, and a rotating cast of friends and extended family who'd proven themselves worthy of inclusion. Raymond had been sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for embezzlement and 3 years for false imprisonment, to run concurrently. He'd been released on bail pending appeal, but his lawyers had indicated the appeal was a long shot. His son Trevor had publicly disowned him, a painful but necessary separation. Isaiah Grant had started his own security consulting firm, specializing in corporate ethics and whistleblower protection. He'd sent Janelle a card on the foundation's anniversary. "Thank you for giving me the courage to do the right thing. I'm still working on forgiving myself, but your grace made it possible to try." And Janelle? Janelle had finished her journalism degree, enrolled in a creative writing MFA program, and was 3 chapters into the book about her mother. She'd also started dating cautiously, carefully, but with the security of knowing she didn't need someone to rescue her. She'd already rescued herself. The compass pendant Darius had given her never left her neck. Sometimes she touched it when she needed reassurance, reminded herself that she'd found her way home, that she belonged somewhere, to someone, in a way she'd never belonged before. On a Wednesday evening in June, exactly 1 year after the foundation's opening, Janelle stood in her apartment and looked at the framed photograph on her mantel. It was from that opening day, her and Darius cutting the ribbon together, both of them smiling, Simone and Keisha visible in the background. A family. Her family. Her phone buzzed. A text from Darius. "Dinner Sunday? Simone's bringing someone she wants us to meet. Fair warning. I've already had her vetted by 3 private investigators and approve. See you at 6. Janelle laughed and texted back, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." She poured herself a glass of wine, walked out onto her balcony, and watched the sun set over Chicago. The city that had broken her mother. The city that had hidden her father. The city that had, against all odds, become her home. Somewhere out there, in a diner on Michigan Avenue, someone was probably slinging coffee and taking orders, dreaming of a different life. Someone was struggling, surviving, trying to hold on for one more day. Janelle hoped they'd get their moment, their unexpected kindness that changes everything, their chance to be found, because the world was full of small moments that became big stories, full of ordinary people who turned out to be extraordinary, full of secrets that, when brought to light, revealed not just pain but possibility. And sometimes, just sometimes, the single mom helping a lost girl find her grandfather was really helping herself find a father she'd never known she had. Sometimes the rescue went both ways. Sometimes, against all odds and probability, the story had a happy ending. Janelle touched her compass pendant one more time, smiled at the city spread out below her, and went inside to finish her chapter. She had a story to tell, and finally, she had the peace and security and family support to tell it.